Ever heard of China's century of humiliation? If not, now you have. It all started back when Britain was still the mighty British Empire, a superpower that liked wandering around the world and imposing free trade across the globe. It went here, and there, and eventually to China. At the time, the Qing dynasty ruled China, and they weren't big fans of Britain, or trade, or trading with Britain. But Britain loved Chinese goods, so much so that they ran out of silver, the only thing China actually wanted from them. So Britain asked, "Mind if we sell you some opium to get the silver back?" To which the Qing responded, "Heck no, no sane government, not even one that's incompetent and corrupt as ours, would let drugs flood their country." But Britain said, "How adorable, we weren't really asking." And so, war broke out. Since it was about opium, the war was called the Opium War. Actually, the First Opium War, because there would be a second one. Long story short, the Qing lost and had to sign an unequal treaty, meaning it was forced to accept a terrible deal. Over the next century, China kept losing to foreign powers and kept signing more unequal treaties, and that's how the century of humiliation began. But wait, what does any of this have to do with Hong Kong? Well, after the First Opium War, the Qing had to hand over a small piece of land called Hong Kong Island to Britain. Then, after losing the Second Opium War, it was forced to give up another piece, the Kowloon Peninsula. Decades later, without a third war this time, but still terrified of Britain, the Qing signed another treaty, leasing a chunk of land to Britain for 99 years. Cool, free new land. What should we call it? The New Territories? And just like that, Hong Kong Island, Kowloon, and the New Territories came together to form what we now know as Hong Kong, all under British rule. What right do you have to do all this to us? By the oldest right in history, the right of conquest. Then the Qing dynasty collapsed because it was incompetent and corrupt. What followed was a chaotic period known as the Warlord era, then a republic, and then another republic, the People's Republic of China. This one was important because it stayed, and unlike its predecessors, it refused to acknowledge any of the unequal treaties, including the ones that handed Hong Kong to Britain. Naturally, this made Britain a little nervous. By the end of the Chinese Civil War, the Communist Party had millions of soldiers. If they wanted to take Hong Kong back, they easily could have. But they didn't. In return, Britain became the first Western country to officially recognize the new China. That didn't mean China was going to forget about Hong Kong. In 1971, the People's Republic of China replaced the Republic of China in the United Nations. The very next year, the UN General Assembly passed a resolution to remove Hong Kong from the UN list of non-self-governing territories, meaning that officially, Hong Kong was no longer a colony, but Chinese territory under British occupation. Not everyone was happy about that. Britain, along with 4 other countries, voted against the resolution, but with 99 countries voting in favor, they had no choice but to accept it. Fast forward to 1982. It started as a triumphant year for Britain. It has just gone to war with Argentina over the Falklands, and Britain won. At the time, the person in charge of the country was this lady. She was tough, like metal. Iron, for example. After dealing with Argentina, she soon turned to her next target, China. Meanwhile, the person leading China was this man. He was tough too, like metal. Steel, for example. Just like Thatcher was known as the Iron Lady, Deng Xiaoping had his own nickname, Steel Company, a name given by Chairman Mao Zedong himself. Mao believed Deng had an unbreakable will of steel, and apparently he had so much steel in him that he could start an entire company. And so, Iron met steel in Beijing. Pumped up by her recent victory, Iron insisted to Steel that Hong Kong Island and Kowloon were undoubtedly Britain's, and Britain should continue to govern Hong Kong. And Steel told Iron that Hong Kong was undoubtedly China's, and China would take it back, all of it. What right do you have to do this? Every right. But if you prefer, we can always resort to the oldest right in history, the right of conquest. And Thatcher, truly living up to her nickname, replied, "Fine, then we shall have war, and party like we did in the Falklands." Except, no, she couldn't have said that, because after the meeting, China and Britain jointly declared that the Hong Kong issue would be resolved through diplomatic channels. So the Iron Lady must have expressed her sincere wish for peace over war. After the meeting, as she exited the Great Hall of the People, Thatcher stumbled and fell. To many, this was proof that steel was tougher than iron. Britain and China soon held a few rounds of talks. but it couldn't quite settle the tiny issue of who should actually own Hong Kong. Then Britain held a general election and the negotiations were put on pause. Once the election was over, the British came back with a new proposal. They agreed to acknowledge China's sovereignty over Hong Kong, but only if Britain could keep running the place. Didn't we make it clear from the start? We're taking Hong Kong back. You guys are communist. You don't understand capitalism. Why not let us professionals handle this? Oh, we understand capitalism very well. That's why we didn't choose it. That said, China knew Hong Kong was different from the mainland, so they came up with a new idea: one country, two systems. The concept actually began with Mao Zedong, but it was Deng Xiaoping who made it official. Under this framework, Hong Kong would continue practicing capitalism while mainland China remained socialist, a brilliant compromise. Even Britain later called it a great idea. But at this stage, the real issue wasn't how Hong Kong would be governed. It was who would govern it. China wanted Britain out, Britain wanted to stay, so one of them was about to get hurt. The negotiations happened behind closed doors, but following each meeting, statements were issued. After the first, both sides described the talks as constructive and useful. After the second, they still found them useful. After the third, they simply told the press that they had met. To avoid more rounds of unconstructive and unuseful talks, Deng met with former British Prime Minister Edward Heath. Deng gently reminded Heath that if no agreement could be reached, China would just go ahead and make a unilateral announcement, and that might be very face-losing for Britain. Then Britain gave in. The two sides spent the rest of the negotiations in a friendly atmosphere, discussing complex technical details, like the wording of their joint declaration. The handover ceremony took place at midnight on June 30th, 1997. Everything was planned down to the second. The British flag was scheduled to be fully lowered at exactly 23 hours, 59 minutes and 58 seconds on the day. But there was a slight hiccup. Prince Charles, who later became King Charles, gave a touching farewell speech. A little too touching that he went 23 seconds over time. To make up for it, the British had to rush through the rest of the ceremony, speed-running their anthem and lowering the flag extra fast, but they overcorrected and ended up finishing too early. Then, after an awkward moment of silence, at 0 hour, 0 minute and 0 second sharp, the Chinese national anthem rang out over Hong Kong.